Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cardistrytalk. This is episode 41, and today I'm joined by Andrey. You may know Andrey from his brand Moment X Cards. You may also know him for his really good isolation moves on Instagram, as well as just regular moves as well. I'm super happy to have Andrey on the show and to talk about cardistry. So, Andrey, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Caleb, for having me on and for staying up late to do this. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, so we have a pretty big time gap. So this is actually the morning for Andrey, and then it's a little bit later for me, but we're gonna make it work. So the first thing I kind of want to jump into, the most recent thing with you is obviously Moment X Cards. So just kind of how did you get inspired to make the deck and kind of discover that you wanted to make your own brand and your own playing cards?
Back in 2013, 2013 when Now You See Me was being sort of promoted around. I got quite interested in looking at people do these really fancy shuffles, and at that point I didn't know what they were, but from what it looked like, it was Pandora, it was tornado card, it was all these aerials, and I thought, oh, that's not magic, but it looked really, really cool, and it looks like something that I would love to do. Several months later, when the movie came out and I went there on the premiere, and I was just sitting there for like 2 hours in absolute like astonishment at what these people can do. I just knew that I wanted to do something like that. I didn't know exactly what it was. I had no clue, but I knew that I wanted to do it. And equally as much, I knew that I wanted to eventually one day make my own deck, just because I felt like if I am gonna commit and commit my time and spend a lot of time doing this, I would love to work my way up to a point where I can, I guess, just have something that's my own within a community like that. And for me, it really made all the difference like that. That's how it all really began. Several years later, I actually made a couple of trial decks, just like not this design, just completely just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I never liked the way I made them, and I didn't know anything about stock or finishes. So I just thought, I'm not going to do it now. I'll do it in a couple more years when I'm a bit more recognized and I have a bit more of a following, and people actually know who I am, instead of coming out of the woods out of nowhere and working my way up. I thought, after a while, I thought I might as well go for it. And last year I started making some designs, and I thought I just wanted to trial it out, see how it works, and if I like it, I'm gonna go ahead with it. If I don't like it, I'm not going to go ahead with it. And I like the way I designed my deck, and from there I never looked back. I just wanted to keep doing it until it's done.
And then congratulations on getting it funded in 36 hours, I think what it was.
Yeah, 36 hours. Yeah, it was very, very fast. It was it was like 50-60% in the first like 24 hours, and then it just sort of just jumps in the last in that last 12-hour bracket. It just really jumped quite quickly. Now I think it's like at 130% I think now, so it's still going, which is great. So more people will be getting their decks, which I'm really happy about.
Mm-hmm. What was kind of the inspiration behind the deck? I know you have a lot of light blues and a lot of light pinks in it, as well as a lot of customization on the courts and faces. What was kind of the inspiration and design that you wanted to put into the deck?
I've always liked looking at different sort of street arts, and just like even these like really just basic graffiti. I've always enjoyed taking photos of them, just because I like to sort of manipulate those in post-production. And last year, when I was in a graffiti tunnel in Sydney, which is like this huge, like about a kilometer long tunnel, and it's all like legal graffiti that goes on there. Every artist really comes and they just paint whatever they want, whenever they want. I thought, I would love to graffiti something that would be symbolic to me, and I did. And after taking some photos of it, and at the same time I was doing some cardistry, as soon as I got home, I was thinking, it'd be really cool to sort of mash these together, to like sort of literally combine cardistry and street art, just to like see how it is if I intertwine them as much as I could. And I did, and it just looked really great on on Illustrator. And I thought, I'm gonna just keep manipulating every photo that I can, like for every court card, and make it look as strange as possible until it comes out to something that I feel that I would be happy using and that I would like to look at a lot. But yeah, that's kind of how I came to it. I've always been a big fan of art, and I've always been a big fan of like really strong colors. And you can see kind of in the background, all these colors. I have them all the time. And for me, like there's this big festival in Sydney that happens annually. I don't think it happened last year because of COVID and stuff, but this year it should go on. And it's partly the inspiration for this deck. It's called the Vivid Light Festival. And you've got like the entire city going, like neon blue, neon purple, neon white, like every color really imaginable, going on throughout the city on skyscrapers and like the Sydney Opera House. You've got that going on for about 2 weeks, every single day for several hours. And I've always thought of like how beautiful that looked and how vibrant it looked, and it catches people's eyes. It's not like one of those colors that you can necessarily like associate to something else. Like this is very, very like futuristic cyberpunk look, and I've always really loved that. Half of my wallpapers on my phone or devices, they're all cyberpunk style. So I thought it'd be great to combine that into my own deck.
And then talking about the Vivid Lights Festival, obviously you named your performance video Vivid. I would like to kind of jump into like the creative process of how you made some of the moves for Vivid, as well as just, talking about move creation is one of the focuses on the show. So I would love to hear kind of what your thought process is when trying to create moves. I know you make a lot of isolations as well as packet cuts. I'm particularly interested in isolations because I never create them, but kind of what's your aspect and viewpoint when it comes to making moves?
Well, I'll split it into two ways. One would be isolations, one would be packet cuts, because I have two separate ways of doing it for them. For isolations, really, it's funny actually, the process. It's very unorthodox. I'm not joking when I say this. I really am not joking. It sounds absurd, but I'm not joking. I either have very, very like lucid dreams in which I dream of doing certain moves, and then I have to, when I get up, I try and recreate those moves. And half the time, if I can't, I figure out ways of doing it. Whether I use, a lot of like saliva, or I have to do, make sure that the room temperature is very, very humid in order to actually do it. But I want to figure out ways of doing it. And that's one way, usually through dreams. Another way is, and I used to do it before, I used to draw a lot. I used to draw I have like a notebook up on my shelf here with like 30 or 40 different isolations over the last 4 or 5 years. And I would draw them out, and I would write like little descriptions for each step that would go. And I would then try and recreate them, or try to see them through that light. Because when you put them on a 2D scale, you then have, in my opinion, more possibilities sometimes to see where that certain card can go, because you can manipulate the drawing, and then it makes it easier to put that manipulation into the actual work of the cards. So for me, that's kind of how I make isolations. I usually, and what I do when people sometimes ask me like how I make them, and I basically tell them the same thing, which I'll tell you now. I think of really the most absurd thing that I could do with the deck of cards, and then I try to do it. The stupider the idea, the better it is, because I think a lot of the time, like, and I did this in the past when I was first starting out. Whenever I would think of an idea that would, to me, look cool, I would think, no, that would look pretty stupid if done at this angle. It wouldn't look nice. It wouldn't be conducive with something that I would want to see or I would like, and I would sort of shy away from going into those ideas, which I think hindered my progress over the years, because I sort of delayed that creativity to be expanded. If this is an idea that I think is stupid, I'm going to do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And 90% of the time it works. But in regards to packet cuts, that is a very different process. Oftentimes I watch a lot of videos by Carter in particular, and Lewis and Edgar. The last few months, definitely, I've been watching a lot of their videos and getting inspired by their moves quite a bit, mainly because they are, in my opinion, they're very unorthodox moves. They're not moves that you sort of can, I guess, like you can't predict what's going to happen next, because you've got that sort of mystery to it, which is part of their, in my opinion, it's part of their style, and I quite like that. And for me, I've always tried to sort of make cuts that make people go, oh, I didn't really expect that to happen there, you know. Oh, and even for myself, like if I see a cut that I like, it's usually because I probably would not predict that specific movement is going to happen next, which is what I try to make in my moves. So yeah.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, just dreaming, that's something I've never heard from anybody. So that's really cool.
Not kidding. I'm not
but,
kidding.
but, the one other thing I think of note I want to mention is the fact that you say, like, think of the most ridiculous or outlandish thing you can think of and then try to do it. That's something like I've tried to implement when I try to make moves. Specifically, I do a lot of foot stall stuff, which I need to post more of. But whenever I look at foot stalls moves, especially, I try to think of what's the most ridiculous thing that could be done with that. I think I have a quote like basically saying the exact same thing somewhere in the podcast. I'm going to look it up. Like I try to think of the coolest thing a Cardist could do in a situation and then try to figure it out from there. And most of the time, 95% of the time, however many percent of the time, most of the time it doesn't work out. But just putting yourself in that awkward position where you're like trying to do something that's awesome usually can create either something completely different or sometimes it actually works out. One thing too that a lot of viewers had mentioned they were curious what your thoughts on this were, and I think this is something you mentioned too, was just how do you kind of get over creative blocks or kind of burning out in cardistry? Do you have any suggestions when it comes to that?
Yeah, look, I think it's a normal process. I think that a lot of people, especially people who have not necessarily been in this community for too long, they sort of think, burning out is a sign that you are not gonna pick up cards ever again, and or if it's something bad, and it's not bad. Like I've burnt out, I think, freaking like 6, 7, 8 times in the last 8 years. Like it's normal. Like at least once a year, I sort of have a bit of a burnout. But it's a normal process. Everyone goes through it. It's more or less, people also get confused as to how to get over it. And a lot of the times, the way I handle it is that I don't look, or I don't listen, or I don't pick up a deck of cards for however long I feel is necessary. It's tempting, but I put everything related to cards away. Like I put it in the drawer. I don't look at it. Any paraphernalia of cards, I put it away. I don't have it anywhere near me. And that allows me to sort of, unclench from that burning out period, and I get to focus on other things and have my mind go elsewhere instead of having to solely, latch on to cards as a, way of like convincing myself that I still like it if I don't at that point in time. And I think that a lot of people just sort of need to sort of like, if you're feeling burnt out, just detach yourself from it. You don't have to do it. No one's forcing you to do it. And if you just don't feel the love for it for days, weeks, months, whatever it is, then so be it. You will come back to it when it's time. Forcing it's not going to help. I think that's, if anything, it's more detrimental to your love for the art form. I know many times I used to continue to do cards even through a burnout period, and I would be like, I would not be making good moves, and I would not be making good progress with anything, and I felt that it was just not conducive with good creativity or a good mindset with it. So if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Just take a break for however long you need, and just do something completely different, like nothing to do with cards. If you like to read, just read as many books as you want. If you like to draw whatever you want. Do any other hobby but cards for however long you need until that feeling fades.
Yeah. And I think what you find too with a lot of cardists is they usually have like another hobby that they do. Like for Leo, he skateboards, Sib makes movies. Most
Hmm.
cardists have like multiple outlets of creativity and then just hobbies in general. So yeah, if you're definitely feeling burnt out, I think not trying to force it and then go to some of those other hobbies, get inspiration from those other hobbies, whether you realize it or not, and then bring it back. You'll be a lot
And
more creative. I know you talked about drawing, video games, and stuff like that. Obviously, you talked about the illustration when it comes to some of your moves. Have you found that your other hobbies have intertwined into your cardistry at all?
um, I think so. I think so. I think especially especially drawing. I think came into or comes into into that aspect of cards quite a bit. Um, I think because really with drawing you've got huge creative freedom when you do it.
Mm.
You've got this obviously blank page, and you can draw whatever the hell you want, and it's completely okay whatever it is. And I think that that has also shaped my view on creativity and creating with cards. That it's totally okay to make whatever you want. It's whatever it is, it's fine. It's yours. It's as long as it's original, it's completely yours. So it doesn't necessarily matter what it is, as long as you're creating something that you're happy with. I think that's what I've learned, especially through drawing. If you're happy with what it looks like and how it looks like, then it doesn't matter kind of what anyone else really thinks, as long as you're happy with it. So that's sort of how it shaped my opinion as well. Video games, not so much. Video games, it's kind of like a bit of a like a mental blank when I go into the aspect of video games. I just sort of go in there and I'm not focused on absolutely anything. It's almost, I mean, I guess to an extent it does help my creative process because it clears my mind off of everything. Playing video games, it sort of clears my mind, and then I come back to it, and then I look at cards with a not like a fresh start, like a clean slate, and I don't have any of those random ideas buzzing through my head. I just have this like a brand new brand new page really to start drawing or making cards with. So in that respect, it does help, but it doesn't necessarily give me any sort of creative um, direction when I make things. Usually, I know people stumble upon mechanics or something that then they work on, and that's great. Like I've done that as well. But for me, whenever I make moves, I have an intention to make a move. I don't necessarily just make it, you know, out of the blue. I mean, I do sometimes, but like most of the time, I sit down and I have an intention. I want to make a card that looks like this, or that uses a mechanic that has a spring, or that has a flick of two cards going in an anti-clockwise direction. Like I have a very, very specific layout to when I create, so that I sort of meet each checkpoint as it goes. Um, like a move that I posted yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. It's called flip flop. It has like the sort of waving motion of the packets. Yeah. Basically, with that one, I wanted to sort
Mhm.
of make something that had like the infinity symbol look to it, and
Mhm.
that's what I was trying to do when I was making the packets move in those directions. I was trying to make it look like that, and I spent a little while just trying to figure out really how to shape it like that, and I couldn't do that for a while. So I was just really sitting down, and I was for a couple of hours just looking at each packet and its rotation and its fluidity, and trying to sort of like when you sort of when you draw and you want to try and make something as precise as possible so that it looks neat. That's what I was trying to do here. I was trying to make it look very, very, very neat in its sort of creative process, so that it doesn't come out looking like a really big pile of nothingness.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So in that sense, those types of other hobbies sort of intertwine. um I'm just trying to think. Reading, I guess reading, to an extent, it does help with my naming process though, because my names are really strange. Like I'm my names of the moves are really weird, and they sometimes have absolutely zero relevance to the move itself. Um, but for me, I maybe made a move while watching a movie or while reading something, and then I, either use the title of that specific book, or I use the title of the movie or the song or something that I found that I that which then I actually named the move because I was creating it at the same point in time when I was doing the other stuff. So I sort of pay homage to the other stuff that I do with the naming process. But yeah, that's how it is with me.
So now that we've talked kind of about the creative process of making moves, I also kind of want to look into the creative process of filming videos with those moves. I know a pretty common question I've had from the viewers for you was kind of how do you make a solo video and kind of some tips when it comes to that. When it came to making Vivid and some of the solo videos you've made in the past, do you have any tips or any, ideas about how to make a good solo video?
Yeah, I think that the first thing is when you're trying to make a solo video is you need to be prepared well in advance to make one. I would give at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance to prepare everything to actually make it. I think that you need to. I mean, not everyone has the availability of a high-end camera or the best lighting, and that's completely fine. You have to use what you have around you. But to make a good solo video, you need to do a couple of things. You need to actually either film outside if you don't have any like artificial lights around. Film outside. Film in a hallway with one of those lights above you, because in post-production you can change or edit the lighting to look a little bit different, so you don't necessarily need to worry too much about that when filming. You need to film the same move in several camera angles, at least 3 or 4 different angles, because edit them, you can mash them together, and it looks much more involving, especially if you're filming by yourself. If you don't have someone to actually film for you, that's a way to make it a much more interactive process for someone watching. And I think being completely satisfied with all of your moves. If you feel that one of your moves doesn't have a good finish, or one of the moves you don't like the opener to, but you can't be bothered to change it now. Either you wait for your solo video and do that in like a month time when you're happy with the opener, or just take that move out, because either way there's going to be a bit of a discrepancy there. If you like maybe 8 or 9 moves of yours but you don't like one of them, either take that one out or change it up and then film the solo video later, because solo videos are not something that you do monthly. You do it maybe once a year, once every 2 years for some people. So try and be as happy as you can be with what you're actually producing, and use literally whatever you have around you. If you live in a place that is completely barren, then take some props with you from maybe your home, like from home, or go to, if you can, especially during COVID, it's a bit different now, but if you can, go to any public space, because you can go to, like you said, for example, you want to say for example you have a deck of cards that is very very intricate, like any of the Theory 11 decks, any of the Illusionist decks. You want to film a solo video with them, go to a place that has very historic looking buildings. Go to a library, film outside, because you've got those extremely like an extremely different landscape to it, and it actually fits with the theme that you're going with, especially with the cards you're using. And that's another thing, actually, just as I'm linking that together. Theme. If you are going to film a solo video, try and cover the specific theme that you want. If you want to make it look more cinematic, then you may need to focus on different times of day when filming, especially if you don't have lights around you, like artificial lights. Film either at dusk or dawn, but you have to really time that very well and make sure that you're there on time, and prepare that all in advance, and check the area is not somewhere where it's going to be raining or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that you have to do in advance, but that's just the process of it. Another thing is, I don't necessarily like to film solo videos outside, because it can get very windy here, and that's not going to be good for my cards, especially when they're flying everywhere, and having to reshoot that 1,000 times is not going to help. So if you can, film inside. Usually is more controlled of an environment. So you're going to have less, like a lower likelihood of losing your cards or screwing up the move 1,000 times. And also just try to sort of remain, I guess, like calm when you're performing, because that sort of performance anxiety can come over you when you least expect it, and you feel like the move is ready or you've got your repertoire ready to go, but then when you start filming and that's for your solo video, it's like, oh well, I'm just going to screw it up now everywhere, which does happen. It does happen. Everyone goes through that. I think it was with the Verts video from a few years ago, that SS17, they were filming for like I think a week or something for that video, like because either they didn't do the moves right or the camera wasn't specifically in focus or something rather. So you've got different external things that can happen. You just need to account for them. So just plan, and then prepare everything that you need to well in advance. That would be one of the main things. Oh, actually, the main thing really that I would take away from that.
One question specifically I had from a viewer when it comes to, creating videos and solos was if you had any tips on camera angles, because there's someone said that they think you have really good camera angles when it comes to your moves.
That's good. Yeah, I try to sort of I try to make the camera angles really as creative as possible. I have a tripod here, which is kind of what I use for everything really, if I'm filming by myself. But for me, camera angles, well, they differ for every move. Some moves are going to have really atrocious angles. Like you would think that it's like the ugliest move, known to mankind if you film it from like a top down or even from a down looking up angle. Like it would look really horrible. But then there are some moves, and Leo is a very good example of that. He's got a lot of moves that are close up, but they sort of immerse you into each of the moves because the angle is very, very sort of tight, like around the move, and it doesn't really have a lot of negative space around. So in that sense, but look, I think the best tips I can give for camera angles are it's a lot of trial and error. If you feel that your move can benefit, especially if it's an aerial move, sometimes it can benefit from having a top-down angle at least 0.5 meter to 1 meter above your height, because then when you edit it, you have more of a frame to work with, so nothing will be out of frame. And also you can you can sort of, in your editing process, you can actually zoom in, and when you're editing for Instagram to post or wherever, if it's for YouTube, if it's for Instagram, you can actually shape it so it looks how it should be, instead of having everything look really horrible, which I've had in the past. For years I was trying to deal with camera angles, and I could never get them to work. I could never get them to work. They were always very very off for me. But definitely working from a top-down angle. I should just show you something. Okay, so yeah, the light is going down. This is my camera, and for me, half the time, if I'm filming any cut, I can kind of get my cards to about this close and still be in focus. But for me, if I do any cut or any move, really, it's going to be out of frame. Even though this is a wide angle lens, it's still going to be out of frame. So for me, if I want to do any cut, whether it be, say for example, a judo flip, right? I do a judo from this angle, this deck is not going to be seen at all. This will be slightly. So for people, if you want to actually see the move, you need to tilt it really like this or like that in order to actually see what's going on. Oh, and then I would say keep it to about this length really, or this like distance, because that's the only way really that you're going to see everything that goes on. Otherwise, it's just not conducive with making anything look good. Now, if you're doing a two-handed or anything cut, I would say keep it around like a 45-degree angle, but keep it very far away. Keep it in focus, but keep it far away. In post, you can edit it and you can zoom it in. And I've done this many times. I've done it close up and everything to have like a shallow depth of field. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what kind of depth of field you have, because if you can't get it in frame because it's too close, it's not going to look good. So keep it further away. Keep it, obviously, you and other people would know hopefully about like f-stops. Keep it at a very shallow, not shallow, sorry, a very long f-stop, so maybe like 4, 5, 6. Keep it further away so you have everything in focus. and you can sort of be sure that everything will be ready to go when you're in post. But I would say also just get creative with the camera angles. Don't do everything that you see, on Instagram. If you feel that you can do something better, try and do it. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no set rule of how you're supposed to, make your camera or make your video look like. It's just more or less something that you have to try, and for every person, for every location, it's going to be different. For me, I keep these angles only because I have these different lights that I can use, like studio lights that I can actually use to, shoot at different angles. But if people don't have those lights and you only have a window, great, use the natural light, but you may not be able to get the same angle. So you may need to keep your tripod here, your camera facing here, if your window is over there. You need to keep your tripod and your camera like this. There's no other way. You just have to make that work. So it's just really getting creative with your environment as well, and utilizing any props that you have around to maybe, tilt your camera at a certain angle that, that will help get your move to look even better on camera.
Andrey, at the end of the show, what I like to do is what I call roll out the close-up pad. That's just my way of saying, is there any last nugget or thing that you would like to promote?
I want to make it clear that for anyone who is starting out or who is still relatively new within the community and who's still starting out with cards, or even for however long you are with it, it sort of goes for everyone, but especially to people who are beginning. Make sure that you're doing the art form because you like it, and try and learn from people that have been in this environment for a very long time, especially when you're starting out. Try and not focus on copying people or copying people's styles. Just try and do what you feel that you're comfortable with, because at the beginning, it can look very sort of daunting, everything around, and obviously it's a very massive place, so you kind of don't know where to put your foot first. So try and eventually find your style and not find anyone else's to copy, even if it's inadvertent. But doing a lot of research, I think, as well, on the types of people that you would like to maybe emulate, and then finding your own area of where you'd like to be within that is a good place to go to, especially later on, depending on how far you are along in your journey through this community. But don't get stuck on sort of trying to make the best move, or trying to make the next best move. Just try and be happy with what you're doing, and from there, really, that's all you need to worry about. Truly, that's all you need to worry about.
Mm-hmm. So that's great words of advice. I'll leave links to Andrey's stuff in the description for both his personal account and as well as MomentX cards. Andrey, I want to thank you for being on the show. I hope everybody enjoyed the listen, maybe learned a little bit something, had a little fun. It's been a lot of fun. Andrey, once again, thanks for being on the show, and we will see you guys later.
Thanks, man.